The memory chips inside the computer you are using right now might already be Chinese, and you would have no way of knowing. Not the processor, not the screen, but the memory, the working desk of every machine, the place where your computer keeps everything it is thinking about at this exact moment. For decades, only 3 companies on the entire planet could make that memory at real scale. A tiny and fabulously rich club that almost nobody could break into, and then a company most people in the West have never heard of, from the Chinese city of Hefei, walked straight through the door that was supposed to be locked forever. Its name is a mouthful, so let me just call it China's memory champion. In a single year, its revenue exploded by more than 7 times over. It has climbed to become the 4th largest maker of this memory in the entire world. And it has the 3 old giants who have ruled this business for a generation genuinely, measurably nervous. Tonight I am going to show you what this company really is, how it pulled off the fastest rise the memory industry has ever seen, why it is making a giant like Samsung sweat, and the honest catch that the wildest headlines always leave out. Let me start with why this is such a shocking story, because to understand it you have to understand just how closed this business has always been. The memory I am talking about is called DRAM, and it is one of the 2 kinds of memory in every phone, laptop, and server on Earth. If the storage drive is the filing cabinet where things are kept long-term, the DRAM is the desk, the surface where the computer lays out everything it is actively working on so it can reach it instantly. Every machine needs it, tons of it, and it needs more every single year. It is one of the largest and most essential markets in all of technology. And here is the strange part. Making DRAM is so brutally difficult that for years only 3 companies in the world could do it at scale. 2 from South Korea and 1 from the United States. 3. That is it. Between them they carved up almost the entire planet's supply. It was, in plain terms, one of the tightest clubs in the global economy. A place where the barriers to entry were so high, the machines so expensive, the know-how so specialized, that new competitors simply did not appear. People tried to break in for decades and failed. The 3 giants sat comfortably at the top of a mountain almost nobody could climb, and every few years they would raise or drop their prices together, and the whole world of electronics would feel it. That is the world our Chinese champion decided to walk into. Now here is how the impossible happened. Backed by enormous patience and a river of state money, this company in Hefei set out to do the thing everyone said could not be done, to build a real, modern DRAM industry from almost nothing. And for a while, it was almost nothing. A tiny player making older, simpler chips that the giants did not even bother to worry about. But it kept climbing. It kept pouring in money, building factories, hiring engineers, learning. And then the climb turned into a sprint. In the space of a single year, its share of the entire world market roughly doubled, to somewhere around 8%. Its revenue over the same stretch did not grow by a nice, respectable amount. It exploded by more than 7 times over, a number so large it looks like a misprint. It is now, by the amount of memory it can physically produce, closing in on the American giant, and analysts believe that by the end of this very year, its production capacity could nearly match that of Micron, the lone American member of the old club. From a standing start, it has become the 4th largest DRAM maker on the planet, and it is still accelerating. And it is about to pour gasoline on the fire. The company is now going public on the Shanghai stock market in what is shaping up to be one of the largest share sales anywhere in Asia this year, aiming to raise on the order of $8 billion. That is $8 billion fresh dollars to build even more factories, buy even more machines, and make even more memory. When a company that is already growing this fast suddenly hands itself a war chest that size, the people running the old giants do not sleep well. If you find it as fascinating as I do to watch a locked and guarded industry get cracked wide open, then subscribe to Sinova, because tracking exactly these breakthroughs, the moments a newcomer shatters a club that was supposed to be unbreakable, is the whole reason this channel exists. Now let me show you the clever part. The reason this happened right now and not 5 years ago. Because timing is everything, and the timing of this was almost perfect. To understand it, you need to know that not all memory is equal. There is the ordinary memory, The standard chips that go into phones, laptops, and the vast ocean of everyday servers. That is the bread and butter, sold by the truckload, the stuff the world runs on. And then there is a special, premium, extremely expensive kind of memory, built specifically to feed the hungry chips that power artificial intelligence. That premium memory is where the fattest profits in the entire industry are right now, because the whole world is scrambling for anything that makes artificial intelligence run faster. So look at what the three old giants did. Seeing that mountain of profit in the premium memory for artificial intelligence, they pivoted hard. They poured their best factories, their best engineers, and their attention into making that expensive premium memory, chasing the biggest paydays. And in doing so, they quietly took their eye off the ordinary, everyday memory, the plain chips that everything else needs. They let that part of the market get tight. And a tight market means the ordinary memory got more expensive and harder to find. That open door is exactly the one our Chinese champion walked through, because the ordinary, everyday memory is precisely what it makes. While the giants were all crowded around the premium AI memory chasing the biggest profits, the Chinese company was quietly flooding the world with the ordinary chips everyone still needed, selling them at prices that were hard to resist, at the exact moment those chips were scarce and dear. It did not have to beat the giants at their strongest point. It simply walked into the space they had abandoned and filled it. That is not luck. That is a company reading the board perfectly and moving while its rivals were looking the other way. And do not let anyone tell you this was just about cheap labor, because making this memory is one of the hardest things human beings know how to do. A single memory chip holds billions of microscopic cells, each one so tiny that thousands of them would fit across the width of a human hair, and each one is really just a tiny bucket holding a whisper of electric charge. The cruel part is that those buckets leak. The charge drains away in a fraction of a second, so the chip has to stop and refill every single one of its billions of cells thousands of times a second, forever, without ever losing your data. That is where the name comes from. Dynamic memory. Memory that has to be constantly refreshed, just to keep from forgetting. Building something that does that flawlessly, billions of times over, on a sliver of silicon, is why only 3 companies on Earth could ever do it. Cracking that is a genuine feat of engineering, not a shortcut. And here is the proof that this is real, and not some future promise, because it is already inside products you can buy today. Major Western brands, the kind of names you would recognize on a box, companies like Corsair and Dell and Hewlett-Packard, have already begun putting these Chinese memory chips inside the machines and the memory sticks they sell to you. Think about what that means. The story is not that China might one day make your computer's memory. It is that the memory in a brand new computer or a brand new stick of RAM, sold under a trusted Western name, may already be coming out of a factory in Hefei, and the buyer would never know the difference. It works. It is cheaper. And it is quietly spreading through the supply chain of the whole industry right now. And here is the detail that truly frightens the giants. A newcomer selling cheap is one thing. You can wait it out, assuming it is bleeding money to buy the market, and will eventually run dry. But that is not what is happening here. Even while selling at those tempting lower prices, the Chinese champion is astonishingly profitable, with an operating margin recently sitting up around 70%, which is right in the same rarefied neighborhood as the mighty giants themselves. Sit with that for a second. It is undercutting the establishment on price and matching them on profitability at the same time. A rival that is both cheaper than you and nearly as profitable as you is not a passing storm you can wait out. It is a permanent new fact of life, and the giants know it. Here is the re-hook, the pattern you need to see, because you have watched China run this exact play before. Take a product the West treats as a mature, boring, solved commodity, something nobody thinks is exciting anymore. Pour in state money and staggering scale. Drive the price down and down until you own the market. It is precisely what China did with solar panels, until it made most of the world's supply. It is what it did with batteries. It is what it did with the very display screens we talked about in another story. And now it is doing it with memory, one of the last great commodities of the electronics world that the West still dominated. The names on the door change, but the strategy underneath never does. Find the essential thing everyone needs, then outbuild everyone until you control it. Now I promised you honesty, and this is where it really matters, because the hype on this one runs far ahead of the truth. China has not conquered the memory industry, not even close. What it has done is crack the low end, the ordinary memory, fast and hard. But on that premium, expensive memory for artificial intelligence, the stuff where the real money and the real prestige live today, the Chinese champion is still well behind. By most estimates, 1 to 2 full generations behind the leaders. It is racing to mass-produce a version of that premium memory a couple of years from now that the Western and Korean giants have, in some cases, already moved beyond. So on the most valuable prize in the whole industry, China is still the one chasing. And there is a second catch, a big one. The United States has aimed its export controls squarely at this exact company and at exactly this kind of premium memory, precisely to slow the catch-up and keep the most advanced tools and technology out of Chinese hands. So this is not a clean, open race. It is a race with one runner trying to sprint and the other trying to tie its shoelaces together. By the raw amount of the world's memory it actually ships, the Chinese champion is still a good deal smaller than any single one of the 3 old giants. So let me be very clear, because you deserve the real picture. The true story is not that China now rules memory. It is that China finally, after decades of everyone saying it was impossible, broke into the most exclusive club in the industry, did it in record time, and is climbing so fast that the giants who used to ignore it are now genuinely afraid of what it becomes next. And to understand why China wanted this so fiercely, you have to see the wound it was trying to heal. For years, China has spent more money buying chips from the outside world than it spends buying oil. Let that sink in. The single largest thing this manufacturing superpower imported, by value, was not fuel, it was semiconductors, and a huge slice of that bill was memory, bought from those very same 3 foreign giants. To a country that wants to control its own destiny, depending on outsiders for something that essential felt like a knife held to its throat. So breaking into memory was never really just a business plan. It was a national mission, to stop paying rivals for the beating heart of every device it makes. And that is why the money and the patience behind this company have been all but bottomless. Because even that, the honest version, is enormous. Memory is a gigantic, essential market, and when a hungry new player floods the low end with cheap supply, it drags the whole price of memory down and squeezes the fat profits the old giants have enjoyed for years. And history is unkind to those giants here. Once China has learned to mass-produce the ordinary version of something, the premium version has almost always been a matter of time and money, both of which China has in abundance. The giants know this. They have watched it happen in solar, in batteries, in screens. They are looking at their own industry now and seeing the opening moves of a script whose ending they already know. So the next time you slide a fresh stick of memory into a computer, or buy a new laptop, or read about the 3 great memory giants of Korea and America, remember that the club is not sealed anymore. A company from Hefei that most of the world could not name a year ago has forced its way inside, grown its revenue more than 7-fold in a single year, and started climbing toward the top at a speed the industry has never witnessed before. It has not won, but it has done the one thing everyone swore was impossible. It got in the door. And if the pattern holds, getting in the door was always the hardest part. If you want to keep watching which locked and guarded industries China cracks open next, then subscribe to Sonova, and the next time someone tells you a certain business is simply too hard for a newcomer to ever break into, remember the quiet company from Hefei and ask them how sure they really are.